Okay, what if I told you that one of history's biggest secrets was hidden inside a book that has almost no words? Today we're going to try and crack the code of this silent mystery and figure out what it's been trying to tell us all this time.
So, picture this. It's 1677, and a book called the Mutus Liber, which literally means wordless book, gets published in France. And its big claim that it reveals the entire secret of alchemy, the legendary great work, not with words, but through just 15 super detailed symbolic pictures. And right away, that's a huge puzzle, isn't it? How can a book with no words explain a process so complicated that it drove some of the smartest people in history crazy for centuries? Well, the answer is right there, laid out for us image by image. It's just waiting for us to solve it. To figure this out, we can't just glance at the pictures. We have to actually decode them. And our first clues? They're hidden in the very specific and honestly pretty weird process that these images show.
The whole journey starts right here, in a field, at dawn. You see a man, the alchemist, and a woman, his soror mystica, or mystical sister. And they're doing something really specific. They're wringing out these huge cloths to collect every last drop of morning dew.
What's so wild about this is how it connects the whole mystical world of alchemy to something so real and, normal. The dew they were so obsessed with is the exact same dew you'd find on your lawn this morning. This wasn't some imaginary ingredient. It was real, something they could literally get their hands on.
So you've got to ask, right? Why go through all that trouble for what we know is basically just water? The answer to that question opens up a whole different way of looking at the universe, a worldview that's completely different from ours today. To really get it, we need to try and see the world through their eyes, to understand what they thought they were collecting. Because to an alchemist, this was not just water. It was the single most important ingredient they had. You see, they believed in something called the astral dew theory. They thought dew didn't come up from the earth at all. Nope. They believed it fell down from the heavens, sent by the moon and the stars, and that it was packed with the very seeds of life and cosmic energy.
Now that is the complete 180-degree opposite of what we know is true today. Our modern telluric theory explains that dew is just water vapor in the air that condenses on cool stuff near the ground. But for the alchemist, it was all coming from above.
So when they were out there in the morning wringing out those cloths, they believed they were literally harvesting the life force of the universe. It was a kind of cosmic juice that was absolutely essential for their great work. But here's the thing. The Mutus Liber isn't just a chemistry textbook. Once you understand the physical part, you start to see there's a much deeper spiritual layer to this whole mystery. And the clue to unlocking this next layer? It actually comes from a super famous story in the Bible, Jacob's dream, where he sees a ladder that stretches all the way from earth to heaven. It's a powerful symbol for a spiritual journey, a bridge between our world and the divine. And this is a perfect example of how this book works. If you go all the way back to that very first image we looked at, the ladder that the angel and the child are on, that's not just some random ladder. It's a direct shout out to Jacob's ladder, signaling right from the get-go that this whole process is about way more than just mixing things in a lab. But it gets even crazier. Researchers figured out that the numbers on this first plate, if you read them from right to left, like you would in Hebrew, are actually a Kabbalistic code. And they point to the exact verses in the Bible that talk about Jacob's dream and his being blessed with the dew of heaven. This basically frames the entire book not as a physical recipe, but as a roadmap for spiritual evolution. So, we have the physical and the spiritual, but there's one more layer, a much more modern one, that takes this ancient practice out of the lab and puts it right inside our own heads. Fast forward to the 20th century. Enter the famous psychologist Carl Jung. He looks at all these bizarre alchemical texts and has this absolutely revolutionary idea. He says, hey, maybe these guys weren't actually talking about matter. Maybe they were unconsciously describing their own minds. For Jung, the alchemist's great work was a perfect metaphor for what he called individuation, and that's just his term for the journey we're all on to bring together the conscious and unconscious parts of ourselves to become a whole, complete person. And when you look at it through that lens, the old alchemical stages suddenly make a new kind of sense. The nigredo, the blackening, is like a dark night of the soul, a descent into the unconscious. The albedo, the whitening, is about finding clarity and purifying yourself. And finally, the rubedo, the reddening, is about integrating it all and becoming a new, whole self.
So, in Jung's eyes, the legendary philosopher's stone wasn't some magic rock that could turn lead into gold. It was a symbol for that fully realized, integrated version of you, a potential that he believed exists inside every single one of us.
Okay, so we've peeled back the physical layer, the spiritual layer, and the psychological layer. What's left? What is this wordless book's ultimate final secret?
Well, the answer comes on plate 14, almost at the very end. This picture is basically a summary of the whole shebang. You see the 3 furnaces of transformation, the sun and the moon coming together in the middle. It's all there.
But the real secret, the final clue, isn't in those big symbols. It's actually hidden in plain sight, right at the bottom of the page. After 14 plates of total silence, the Mutus Liber finally speaks. It gives us one direct instruction. Pray, read, 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 read again, labor, and you will discover. And that's it. That's the core secret. The book is telling us that true transformation isn't a formula you can just look up. It's a process you have to live, a mix of deep thought, study, and just plain hard work. So in the end, the book is mute for a very good reason. It's showing us that real change, whether it's physical, spiritual, or psychological, can't just be told to you. It's something you have to experience for yourself. The secret was never in the book. The secret is in the doing. And that leaves us with one last question, a question that only we can answer for ourselves.